Okay, and I'll put it on the I'll share the video, basically link. I'll upload it somewhere and then share the link so you guys can review it later on. Okay. Um, so let's start with some JavaScript fundamentals. So in this class, we're gonna learn some JavaScript fundamentals first. That's the first part of the course. Um, Building games in JavaScript, like a raw JavaScript. If you if you have some knowledge of JavaScript, you probably know it's hard to build anything complex, um, with just pure JavaScript, um, because it's designed. It's a scripting language, and it needs support from HTML and CSS, and having all three together working in um, in a synchronous way, it's a little bit difficult, right? To build a very complex game, though people have done that before. Uh, but nowadays, it's there are tools available that lets you build very complex applications using frameworks like React and other Angular and things like that. So we're gonna learn JavaScript, and then we're gonna move to one of the frameworks like React, and that would help us build a complex game. React is pretty easy to learn, um, and we're just gonna learn JavaScript so we can do React. Okay. Nowadays, if you go look for any job in JavaScript space, mostly you're gonna be learning one of the frameworks. Um, so and it's actually quite lucrative, right? Right now, if you have like a React knowledge, you can build mobile application using React Native. You can build web application using React. uh, you know uh, for example, Instagram is it's made using React. Facebook is nowadays, like half the website, like complex website, are built using React, and a lot of people are migrating, and then rest are built using some other framework similar, because it's easy to build, right? So we're going to be learning about that. um, any question before we start? Okay. So and at the end. Okay, cool. And at the end, we'll build. You'll be able to build a game by yourself, right? Um, and when I say game, let me give you an example. You can either build something simple like a tic-tac-toe. You can build rock paper scissors kind of game. These are simple games. Or you can build something a little bit complex like a hangman. You can build, I don't know, whack-a-mole. Or you can build something more complex like snake game, where there are moving parts, right? The snake is moving and things like that. You can do that as well. I would recommend, start with something simple, and then if you have time, you can migrate. Because ultimately, I want you to have at least some success of building a game by yourself. And if you pick a simpler game, it's much easier, right? So then um you know uh, you can build in within a week or so, and then you can say, hey, I've at least built something, right? And then if you have time, you can build something a little bit more complex, so you don't get stuck, right? So there'll be a project that you're going to be working on, and then last class uh, of this semester, you're gonna um, demonstrate that, like whatever you have built, um, yeah, and showcase basically. Okay, but don't worry about right now, because we'll you'll be picking game somewhere in the middle of the semester, and then start working on it. Um, all right. Hey, Timothy, welcome back. I think looks like you got cut off. Um, So you want a quick introduction, Timothy?
Yeah, yeah, my name's Tim. I have a little bit of experience in coding. Um, mm, I don't know. My I was thinking when I joined, I was gonna be a little bit different, but I'm excited to see what's gonna come from this. What I want to get from this is more of an understanding from video games because like I play video games all the time.
Hmm.
That's about it.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Um, we're going to be using two different tools for pure JavaScript. In order to build the games, or build anything in JavaScript, you have to have a setup on your computer, right? But what I do is no setup kind of development environment, which means you can just do it from anywhere, right? So for that, let me share a link which you can open. All right, I passed the link in the chat so you guys can open it. And I'll also share my screen. I would recommend just code with me. It's not very complex. And ask me questions if you get stuck, right? If something doesn't work, let me know so I can stop and help you. Because sometimes what happens is that people get stuck and they don't say anything, and then you know it's like if you can do A and the B is harder than that and the C is harder than that, and then at some point they give up, right? So I don't want you to do that. I want you to keep learning and make sure that you have whatever you do, you're successfully doing this. So let me share my screen quickly. Did you guys see my screen? Okay. So this is now this is called CodePen. CodePen is basically um, your playground, basically. This is where you can write your code. Um, let me just go here and open. Okay, so when I open it, and if I click on it, it opens a new what they call pen, right? It's basically nothing but an environment where you can write HTML here, CSS here, and JavaScript here. And the bottom here is your place where it renders, right? Um, and this is kind of a unique because otherwise, if you were to do on your computer, you would need a bunch of other stuff, and it takes a while to do that, right? I prefer this because this is really nice. So for example, let's say if I want to build a button, right? And you can see that I can see it here, right? It's really nice. Um, I can I can style it. For example, I can add it in like a class, we will learn. Uh, let's say I added a class called my button, and then I can style it. So I can say dot my button, and I can say background color is, let's say, red. Okay, and then the button becomes red. So it's really nice. I can write HTML, CSS, and here I can do JavaScript as well, which we're not going to do right now. Just to showcase it, what's possible, right? Um, but for now, we're just going to deal with JavaScript. We're not going to deal with HTML. At some point, we'll go into HTML and CSS. But let's just deal with JavaScript, because when you learn a language, a programming language, I want to learn in isolation without mixing all three. This way, you know, I can control it. And once I learn that, then we can introduce the other components. Otherwise, it gets very confusing. Okay, so what I would suggest is just to move, I would just remove this for now. And then um, I would code everything in here. Also, one of the advantage of this tool is that you can save your work. So for example, let's say this this right here, I can say, I can name it something, you know. Let's say I'm gonna call it blah. Okay, for lack of better name, I'm just gonna call it a blah, and I'm just gonna save it. Right now, where is it being saved? Because I've created an account with them, and here's my account, right? So I would suggest also that create an account with them. You can basically, use your email address to do that. And once you do that, you can save your work. So if I go back here and look at my work, I can see the blah that I just created. And these are all other previous products that I've created. If you don't name them, it just puts this random stuff. So I tend to create some bunch of stuff and I don't name them, so that's why you see this, right? But this is the one that I named, so you can see it here, right? Um, so if you want to do that, I'll give you a few minutes. You can create an account with them. If you don't want to create an account, that's fine too. But the good thing about creating an account is every time you do something, you want to create a new pen and then name it and save it. So you can go back and refer to your work, right? Uh, so it's really nice. Is there a desktop editor that you would recommend for us alternative to CodePen? Yes, you can use a desktop editor as well if you want to use. It's called VS Code. Okay. Let me also show you how it works. Okay, and this is a different language, but I'll just show you because it's open here on my computer right now. So I'm just gonna demo you that. But let's say um, okay, so right now I was working on a game for my other class. And this is obviously not JavaScript. This is a language called Dart, but you can do the similar stuff, with JavaScript as well. Instead of like main.dart, you can put main.js or something, right? And this is called VS Code, which you can download, and then you know um, this. I'm building this simple game, a rock paper scissor, and it's not complete. That's why it's kind of um, I just started it to teach this in my other class. So yeah, but this is a mobile game. That's why it's mobile application development. So that's why it's in a mobile view. But similar stuff you can do with JavaScript. Okay. Um, so that's seen that application. Okay. It's cool. I'll show you in a minute. Like today, probably at the end of the class, I'll show you how um, how to run your JavaScript locally if you are interested. I would recommend not to do that because it requires quite a bit of work sometime. And since you're learning new programming language, it's good to just do it using a playground, which is much nicer. Okay, but yeah, at the end of the class, I'll show you how to set up your computer as well if you have at the last 5 minutes or so. Okay. So let's go back to our visual editor. Okay, so now back to our visual editor. Hopefully you have created an account. If you haven't done it, just create it, and I can wait for you for a few minutes. I would recommend creating one because, as I said, it will give you space where you can save all the project and refer it to later on. Okay, so once you create your account, right, which should be pretty simple, and you should see some sort of logo like here, which states that you are logged in, right? Uh, Now you can name your pen, which you can do it later. This is a very simple task, so I'll let you know what the name is going to be. Uh, okay, so when you just deal with pure JavaScript, there's no visual part right now, right? Because we're not including HTML and CSS, which means we're gonna use something called console, which means we're gonna write some code and the result will be printed as a text. And so for that, we don't need this rendering screen. Instead, there is something called console at the bottom, on the left bottom. If I open this, drag it up like this, you'd see console. Okay, so this console allow you to see things, um, see things clearly. Okay, so let's write our first. Make sure you open this console, and then let's write our first line of code. And this is what you're going to use a lot. It's basically printing out messages to a console. And to do that, you would say console.log. And then inside, you would print a message. My first message. Okay. So it's console.log. And then within parentheses, I have some string in quotes, and then semicolon. And as you can see at the bottom, you would see that message is being printed. Now you will also see some errors here, and that's because what's happening is as you type, it's actually trying to render. So sometimes what happens, you haven't completed your typing, and it kind of takes that and tries to render it here, and then that creates a problem, right? So what I would suggest is if you can go to the settings, and then if you click on the settings here, and then what you want to do is there is a tab on the left side which opens a behavior. And then once you open the behavior, there are three different things here. And one of the middle thing is called auto updating preview. I want you to disable it by turning it off. Okay, and then save it. Okay, once you do that, you will see this run button here. Again, to do this, you would go to settings, behavior tab, and then disable, turn this off, auto updating, and make sure you save it at the end. Right? And once you do that, you would see this, and then I would just clear this at the bottom here. There's a clear. So this clears the console. Now, if I want to run this, I would click on run, and it would run the command, and it prints it here. All right, everyone's getting it? Let's try running this. Let me know if it works out for you. All right. All right, cool. So I'm glad it works. All right. And if it doesn't work, let me know anytime there's an error or something like that. Okay. So you're going to be using this a lot. Okay. Um, you can print pretty much anything. Any variable that you have needs to be printed. You just use this console log. It's really nice. Um, okay. Now let's understand the complexity of the language, right? Um, so if you want to build an application, you would need some inputs and some outputs. And that's pretty much any game, right? Or any application. You have some visual stuff, as and then you do something. So for example, if you have an Instagram, right? So Instagram is an application. The input is your visual screen, right? And then you do something. So you might click on something, or you touch something, or you scroll something, right? And something happens. And then what happens is the result would be your screen scrolls, or you may log into something, there is some output, right? Um, and in order to do that, there's there are things that you might want to your state, whatever is happening, gets stored into some sort of variable, right? What I mean is by variable is a some sort of, you need a location where you can store some information while your program is running. So you need to have a variables, and this variable gets stored into your memory of your computer, right? Um, in JavaScript, defining a variable is pretty simple. You would use a keyword called let, and then you would name your variable. Let's say I'm going to call my variable x and equal to, and then value of it. So I can say 1. So this means that I've created a variable called x, and its value is 1. Okay. So left side is a variable name, and a right side is a value. And the way it works is, variables are like a locker. So let's say if you have a locker at your school, and if you put your bag inside that locker, right? So that's your value. So let's say 1 is a bag that you put inside a locker, right? Once you put it in a locker, what do you get? You get a key, right? Some sort of code that lets you, like let's say, um, in this case would be locker number, right? So let's say 203 is your locker number. So similarly, on your computer, uh, you don't see this, but when you define a variable, it takes a 1 and put it into this memory box. Okay. And that memory box has some address. So let's say 203 is the address, right? So it puts 1 into this memory box called 203, and X basically holds that value, the of the matter. It doesn't actually holds the actual value, which is 1. It just remembers the locker number, right? And that's how it should be. Like when you put stuff in a locker, you don't remember what you put it inside. You just remember the locker number, right? And so whenever I want to get the value back, I'll go to that locker number and open it. I'll just get whatever it's in there, right? So if I want to print this, if I want to get back the value, I can get back the value by printing it here. So in this line, I created a variable called x, and I set the value to 1. And then next, I'm going to print that value. Okay. And when I print it, it needs to grab it back. So when I says x, it goes and finds a value that is stored in the x, which will be the locker number, right? The memory address. Let's say 203. Goes and get whatever the value is, which will be 1. Okay. So if I run this by clicking here, run button, I would get the 1 back, right? So this is called defining a variable And this is called accessing a variable. So we found a mechanism to store something on our computer, basically, right? Through a variable. So while the program is running, we can hold stuff inside the memory. Okay. Any question on this one? I think this is very important. So when you define it, we need to understand how it works, right? So, all right. There are no more questions. Let's move to data types. So I'm gonna go here and again, these two double lines are called comments, right? Which allows us to put random stuff here, messaging or information about our code, whatever you want to put, right? It's not part of the code. It just, it so when it executes it, it disregards those stuff, anything that's in a double slash. Okay. All right. So if you look at the value here, 1, which is a number, right? So let's look at the data types. Data types in JavaScript. So one of the first data types I wanted to introduce is number, right? Numbers. Numbers can be like 1. It could be 1.2. It could be million something, trillion, whatever, right? But they're numerical values. Okay. So those are numbers. The next data type is called strings. Strings are always wrapped with quotes. It could be a double quote or a single quote. So here's an example. Hi, this is a string. I can also use a single quote. Hello, this is also a string, right? But has to have some sort of quote around it. And so that differentiates between a string and a number. I can also have a numerical value within the string. I can also say, 12. This is actually a string. This is not a number because I put the double quotes around it. This is a number. This is not a number. Okay. So that's string. Another type of value is called Boolean. Boolean has only 2 values, true or false, right? Anyone know why do we need that? I understand the numbers. I understand the string. Why do we need Booleans? Anyone? Booleans have Booleans are true and false. They're very logical. Okay, so if I want to say something like is sky blue, I can either say true or I can say false. There are no gray areas when it comes to programming. You can create a gray area by creating multiple levels, but ultimately it comes down to true or false, which means something is there, something is not there, right? And it Booleans helps you make decisions in your code, and that's why they're so useful. It's probably most useful for logic development. Okay. Um, and then there's the last type of data type, and these are called simple data types, right? Which means I can hold a single value. I get one number, one string, or one Boolean, right? That's why this is called simple data types. Let's say if I have a um, score of a particular player, I can say using a number, right? But if I want to know score of like entire team, um, like which player did what, and all that stuff, I cannot represent using a simple value. For that, I would need something more complex. So that's where the arrays and some other data types comes in the picture, which we'll learn later on. So far, we just want to start with a simple ones, which is this three, right? And beyond this three, there is a one more, and that's called null. Anyone knows what a null would be? Have you heard of this one? Null?
I know from last time it's the placeholder.
Yep, yep. It's a placeholder, which means, like I wanna have a locker. I don't want to put anything inside. It's almost like that, right? I want to have a locker, but I'll put something inside later on. So it's like a reserving something placeholder, right? Um, it's a placeholder empty value. You can also call it value, right? So these are simple data types. In JavaScript, they also called primitive data types, but they are the same. It's a single value. Think of that way, right? Number, string, boolean, and empty value, which is null. Okay. Um, all right. So if I were to print them, I can, you know, I'm gonna clear these guys up for now. So if I want to print them, I can do console.log and then 1. So that should print a number. If I say console log hi, I should print a string. Console log true, that should print a boolean, and console log null, that should print that empty value. So let's do that. I'm going to clear this for now and then run this. And you can see it prints all those values, right? So you can print all of these values. Console log is really nice. You can print multiple things. So for example, let's say you can have a multiple arguments. So I can do this, a number, and then comma. This way I know this is a number. That's some sort of representation, right? This is a string, and then comma. This is a boolean, comma, true, empty value. All right. Right. So you can see, now I can see what is what in a way. So you can have many things that you like separated by a comma, right? I can do many values. And you can see it prints if all, right? So console log, anything you put comma, it separates the value. And so it's really nice. Okay. All right. So for now, you might want to save this and just name this data types and variable, right? And you might want to save this. Any question on this one? All right. So, okay, cool. It doesn't matter if there is a space after the commas or line breaks. Okay, let's try this. So if there's space, so if I put, let's say, a bunch of space here, right? And always, you can clean this up. That's a good question. and clear this and run this. Yeah, so the space doesn't matter, right? What about the line break? It doesn't matter. The only thing is it doesn't look good. So if I were you, I would make sure that there are no line breaks. Also, what I would suggest is there is a, if you look at on this right side here, you would see something called format JavaScript. So if I click on this one, it, even if you have introduced a line break or space, it removes them. So it formats it. So if let's say if you also made a mistake, for example, let's say if I did this and I, this now, it's kind of weird because I removed I have opening double quote, but there's no closing double quote, right? So this is now weird. You can see by looking at the colors, right? So if I run this, it should create a problem for me, right? It says invalid or unexpected token at the bottom, right? So let's say, I mean, you can make this kind of mistake unintentionally, and sometimes it's hard to see as well, right? So I would just go here and then say analyze JavaScript, and it will tell me it's an unclosed string. Always focus on the first one because subsequent errors could be a result of that, right? So I would just then fix it and then again analyze it, and then it does. There are no more errors, right? So this is really nice. These are really nice tool that will help give you all the details about your code. All right. Okay, cool. So now that we learned about these data types, let's move to operators. Okay, so what are the operators? So let's say if I've, there could be a mathematical operator, right? I want to add something or multiply something. And there could be other operators as well, right? So let's look at some operators, which are very important. So the first is a math operator. Math operators are pretty similar to like your regular math operator, right? Which means, let's say if I have a variable x equal to 1. Okay, so I've defined this x equal to 1, and I can define let y equal to 2. Okay, and then I can say let total equal to x plus y. So the total is nothing but x and adding the value of y. So the total should be 1 plus 2 equal to 3, right? And I can actually print this. So if I do console log total, I should get 3. So let's try this out. So this is a very simple math operator, right? And you can see it's a math operator that you use, for doing the mathematical stuff, in real life. It's exactly the same math operator. But not all math operators are that you're going to use are same, or similar. So let's try this out. All right. So this is a math operator. If I want to do, let's say, multiplication, then you don't do this. This is not, because it x and multiplication sign looks pretty much the same. So we, instead of, we use this for multiplying. Okay, so this is for multiplication. And so obviously 1 multiplied by 2 would be 2, right? So you get 2. What about division? Division is pretty similar to like regular division. You just use slash. And so 1 divided by 2 would be 0.5, right? If I run this, I'll get 0.5. What about remainder? How about remainder? So if I divide something, so let's say if I divide 3 by 2, the answer would be 1.5, right? The answer would be 1.5. But what if I just want the remainder, right, of x divided by y, and the remainder would be 1, right? So if I divide 3 by 2, the remainder would be 1. So if I want to get just remainder, there is another operator, and this would give me the remainder. So I clear this and run this, I would get 1, right? So let's write this down. So plus is plus, this is multiplication, this is division. So these are normal, right? And then this is the remainder, right? Okay, now let's look at some odd odd ones that you're going to be using a lot as well. So let's say if I have x equal to 3, and what I want to do is I want to increase the value of x by 1. So essentially what I want to do, I want to say x equal to x plus 1, right? Remember, you cannot use let again. Once you define x equal to 3, you cannot redefine it. You can change its value, but within that scope, you can only define it once. And then if you want to mutate it or change it, you can change it, right? So here I've defined x equal to 3, and then I said x equal to x plus 1, which means 3 plus 1, which means x going to be 4, right? So I can do it like this, and it gives me 4, right? However, I don't need to do this. I can simply do x plus plus. This is an odd operator. This basically increases it by 1. Okay, it does exactly the same thing. It increases by 1. And similarly, if I want to reduce it by 1, I would just say minus minus, which means it becomes 2. Let's try this out. This is an interesting one. So plus plus means increment by 1 minus minus is the right spelling. I don't know. Anyway. And if you can't remember, that's fine. I mean, you can always Google this stuff, right? What I want you to understand when you learn programming is focus on the logic, how you do things, rather than like these low-level detail about how do I increment by 1. And if you don't remember, that's fine. You can always look it up in Google, right? It's pretty simple. But if I ask you what kind of data types are there in JavaScript, you should be able to say, it's string, numbers, booleans, and empty values like null, right? Any question on this one? All right, so you can save this, and whenever you save it again, it will create a new copy. So you can save it by, math operators. All right. Now let's look at something else. Now that we have understood the math operator, there are other operators. For example, you can look at string operators. Okay. String operators are basically operating on the string, because in math operators, you operate on numbers, right? String operators, you operate on a string. So what if I have a string? Let's say let string 1 equal to hi, and let string 2 equal to John. Okay, so I have two string. One says hi, and the second one says John. And if I want to add them, obviously strings are not addable, right? Logically, you cannot add them, but you can concat them, which can be, like you can say, hi, John. It's called concatenation. So how do you concat two strings? You can say greetings equal to string 1 plus string 2. So plus here also works similarly to numbers, but instead of adding to numbers here, concatenating the two strings. The odd behavior of this would be, and if I just then console log greetings, this would give me some odd behavior, right? So if I run this, it would say hi, John, but there's no space in between. How do I get some space here? Any ideas? When I say idea, just throw anything that comes in your head. Do you want to try something? Let's try this. You write this example and try to make it such that it has hi space John. Just try something. Most of the times, whatever you're thinking should work. That's how I see it in programming, right? So there are multiple ways to deal with the situation, but I would suggest that write this code and then try something so that you can put some space in between. Yeah, null would not work. Space within comma. Yeah, you can put space within comma. So one way to deal with this is I can put some space here, right? So if the string2 has space here, and if I run this now, I should get the space. But this doesn't make sense, right? Because let's say this was a name and this was hi. Now I have permanent space in my name, which doesn't make sense, right? So instead, what I would do is I can create a space, and then I would just have an empty space, right? With one space extra. And then I would say space plus. This way, anytime I need to add space, I can just use this, right? And it does exactly the same thing. This is a little bit more optimal, right? Because names usually don't have spaces in them, right? So I keep the name as it is. I keep the greetings as it is, and then the message then has space in it. Any question on this one? See, the program is, most of the people are afraid of programming because they think if I try, I break something. I say, when you're learning, try to break as much as possible, because this is inside an editor. If what if you break something? Who cares? You write it again. That's it, right? But in the process, you learn something new. And programming is always by doing rather than reading, right? So I would always recommend you to, break early as possible, right? Do something that, you know, would render strange results and see why it does that, right? So there is also another solution, which is quite interesting. So, which I prefer than this. It's called template string. Okay. And the way template string works is there's something called backtick. It's uh if I look at backtick key, it's located like this here. You would see something like this here, right? If it's a Mac, it's located. I think the same thing for the PC as well. Let me know if you do see it. It's under tilde, and it's usually the left corner somewhere. Okay, and so what you do is just you provide a backtick, open and closing backtick, which looks pretty similar, and then yeah, top left, yeah, okay, cool, and then you would say anytime you want to put variable inside, like string 1, you would have to do this: $, curly brackets, and then string 1, then $, curly brackets, string 2, right? So this is called interpolation, which means $, curly bracket means I am putting a variable inside. Because if I simply did this, string 1 and string 2, it doesn't know that they're variables. So if I run this, it would just literally do string 1, string 2, right? So what I need to do in order to interpolate, I would have to do this. So this is called interpolation. And when I did that, it takes the value of string 1, place it here. It puts the value of string 2, place it here. And then I can have whatever space, however space I want. I can even put something like I can put dash or, smiley face, whatever I want, I can put it in between, and then it would render as I expected, right? So this is a nice trick. And in that case, I don't need that space because the template string provides me that ability to interpolate variables and some other stuff. It could be a space or anything else, right? So this, I usually use this, which is really nice. And yeah, it's readable as well. That I have a string 1 variable, string 2 variable, and then it's separated by some space. Okay. You can do also like this. Hi, my name is John, right? So this is really nice because string 1 is hi, and then string 2 is John. So it'd say, hi, my name is John. Now I've interpolated this whole thing. So this is another way of handling strings. Any question on this one?
That's called interpolation. Is that right?
Yeah, interpolation. Yeah, so basically you are, you have a regular string and you inserting values inside, and that's why it's called interpolation. It's really nice. It's really nice because the space within the curly bracket, they are considered as a code space. So it kind of mixes string with the code, right? For example, let's say if I were to add 2 numbers, right, which is 2, and let's take a different example. This would be interesting. So let x equal to 1, let y equal to 2. And what I want to do is I want to say let message equal to, I'm going to use that backtick, and I can say x plus y equal to the sum of these two. I cannot really do x plus y, right? Because I need to have the value of x plus y inside. So for that, I can do this, x plus y. And so what it does is anything that is within that curly brackets and $, it treats them as numbers. So one is x is number, y is also number. And so it adds them together, and it gives you that the message would supposed to make sense. Oh, I need message, not a tweet. Right? So this is a nice trick.
Is there a name for the $sign curly bracket?
Yeah, this is basically an interpolation. Like, so this is called template. This is called template string, and with interpolation, right? You can always Google this kind of stuff. If you do like a JavaScript templates, template literal, they call it. You'll find, a bunch of examples on this one, right? And this is called expression, right? So you're actually interpolating an expression, right? Probably that's, yeah, you can call it template strings or template literals. There are always some different names, right? And in this, the cool thing about this is I can put line breaks. Okay, so if let's say if I want to have a new line, I can say, oh, okay. If I run this, it will give me a new line. Right? So, which is a little bit hard if you just want to do, plus sign, right? So for example, if I did that with hi, new 9, you see, it doesn't work as expected, right? Because I'm breaking in here, I'm breaking the string in two, so it doesn't work. So I need, if I have a template string, I can break it and it works. So template string is anything that is complex, anything where I need to insert, those expressions. It gives me, and it's mainly designed for if I want to write like HTML, for example, if I want to print HTML, right? Some HTML syntax, right? I can do that because it's a template string, right? So yeah, so backtick is pretty useful way of handling those. Yeah. You can always use backtick. Instead of using single or double quotes, you can always use backtick as well. It looks kind of weird, but you can use it. Did somebody say something? You got cut off. Whoever speaking. Okay. So these are string operations, right? So I can, and mostly in a string, you cannot do much, right? You can mostly add them together, right? Can't do anything more than that, right? So string operations are pretty simple. You can name the string operations, right? Let's go to Boolean operators or logical operators, what they call it. What is a logical operator? Logical operator is basically if something is true and some other thing is true, then the whole statement is true. So think of this way. Let's say let raining equal to, let's say, true. Okay, is it raining outside? I can say true. Okay. Have umbrella equal to true, right? It's raining outside equal to true. Have umbrella equal to true, right? So if I want to go to work, if I want to decide that if it's raining and have umbrella, then I can go. But if uh, if I don't have a, well, this is a kind of a weird example. If I don't have an umbrella, then I cannot go. But in this case, this is actually a bad example, because in this case, if it's not raining and I have umbrella, it doesn't matter. I can go still, right? So there are cases where you need both to be true, right? To make the okay, let's just do this way. It's not raining. Let's put it this way. It's not raining and have umbrella. If it's raining, if it's raining and I don't have an umbrella, I can't go, right? So let's say can go to work equal to not raining and have umbrella. If I misspelled it here, I have to misspell it here as well, right? You know what? This is actually a bad example. How about you guys give me an example where both thing needs to be true to do something? Oh, hungry, have food. Yeah, that's it. Can eat, right? So this is a logical AND operator. Which means both condition can be, if both conditions are true, right? Then I can eat. I need to be hungry and I need to have food. What if I am hungry but I don't have food? I can't eat. What if I have food but I'm not hungry? I can't eat, right? So can eat equal to hungry and food. And is means both have to be true. Okay. Another a practical example for, like, let's say if I build a faith, uh, let's say Instagram, right? If I have let is friend equal to true, right? Which means I'm a friend with this person and has permission equal to true. Then I can send a message. Means I need to be a friend with this person, and I need to also have permission from him, right? If he has a blocklisted me and he's still my friend, I cannot send him a message. Something like that, right? So if I console log can eat, this would be true, right? But if I change any of these, let's say if I make it false, I'm not hungry, but I have food, then this is true, this is false and true, which means it's going to be false. And operator both needs to be true, right? It's almost like, yeah, I have food and I'm hungry. So that is an and operator, right? You're going to be using this right now. Some of the stuff may not make sense, but a lot of times you're going to be using these logical operators to make decisions, right? And so it does make sense, to understand them very well. Both have to be true to make it true. So if it either is false or both are false, then it's false. The only condition where it's true is both are true. Okay. Any question on this one? Okay. Let's look at OR operator. So OR operator would be have car equal to true, have bike equal to true, have legs equal to true, right? Can move equal to, I can say either I have a car, and then the OR, it's a little different. OR is like these two pipes. It's on a most right side, under delete button, you would see those pipes. Have bike or have legs, right? If I have any of that, I can move. So this is an OR operator. So the only time it's false is all the conditions are false. All three has to be false, have to be false to make this false. If any of this is true, then the result is true. Okay. So this is an OR operator. And you can actually look at JavaScript logical operators. And you can look at the logical, yeah, these guys, and or, right? There is a not as well, which is, let's look at this. Can't move. So have legs. If I have legs, I can move, right? But if I say can't move, which means I cannot move, then I have to reverse it, right? Which means not have legs. In almost like when I put and, it makes it true to false, right? And if it's false, to make it true, right? So this is a not operator. So it makes false to true, true to false, basically. That's what it does. Okay. So these are logical operators. Another one is called comparison operators. And these are pretty interesting. Comparison operators. Comparison operators are basically you're comparing two values. So you can say, is 1 equal to 1? I want to check, is 1 equal to 1? Yes. So the answer should be true, right? But instead of, but we have a, when I define a variable, let's say let x equal to 1, right? So this is called assignment operator. I'm setting the value. So I cannot use this same equal sign to compare, right? So if I want to compare, so let's say y equal to 1, right? If I want to compare x and y to see if they're equal, I have to use comparison operator. And the comparison operator is basically let is equal to x equal to y. So what this does is it checks if they are equal, then this is true. If they are not equal, then this becomes false. So let's say console log is equal. This is true, right? Because x and y is true, then is equal to true. But if I make this 2, then it's false. Okay. You can also do like a greater than. I can check if it's x greater than y is greater. I can say is x greater than y, right? In this case, it's not, so it should be false, right? But if I make this 3, then 3 is greater than 2, which means is greater supposed to be true. Let's try this out. So these are, in a way, I think, we use a lot in a math, right? But it's called comparison operator because we are actually comparing values, right? Let's try this out. So then there's this is equal. Okay. Then this is greater, right? This doesn't need any recognition. Less, you can do greater than equal to, right? Or you can do less than equal to or greater than equal to, right? This is to check if, a lot of times you want to check the values to see if something is greater than something or something is equal or not. Any question on this one? Let's try this out. Yeah. And try different values, Here you can try equal to, greater than equal to, less than equal to. And let me know if it works. If you have any questions. And again, save your work accordingly, just to change it to whatever, and then click on save, and that should create a pen for you. All right, so let's recap our work if there are no more questions, right? Um, we learned that, I'm just gonna go quickly. We learned what? We learned how to define variables, right? So I can say x and using let keyword, let's x equal to 1. So this is how we define a variable, right? Data types are strings that are with quotes, numbers that are numerical value without quotes, Boolean, which is true or false, right? And then null, which is the empty value, right? So these are our data types. Then we did the math operators. So plus is pretty simple, multiplication, division, and then this was a special one, which is to do the remainders, right? And then we also looked at a plus plus. So if I want to increment the variable value by 1, it's plus plus, minus minus, it would reduce the value by 1, right? So that's what we learned. String operators, we can use like strings like I and plus m, right? But if I want to have a break in between, the best way to deal with that is using a template string where I can do this, and then if I have two variables, right, then I can use this x and then space y, right, using a template string, and and I can put whatever in here, and that would get interpolated, right? So I can put expressions here. So that's the string operators. Logic operators, there are three main operators, right? Is end, which means both sides needs to be true for the statements to be true. Then or, any of needs to be true for it to be true, right? And then not, this basically converts true to false, false to true. And then we also looked at comparison operators. If I want to compare x equal to y to see if they're both same value, then it returns true. If it's not same value, then it's false. I can also look at if x is less than y or x is less than equal to y or x is greater than y, and so and so forth, right? So this is called comparison operators. So far we learned all of that, right? So next, so I think let's just end here. This is good enough for today. Next time we will move to more complex data structures. We're going to look at arrays, so we can store more than one values. Okay, so our objective would be store more than one values, and then we can add stuff to it, we can remove stuff, we can change stuff, things like that. So that should be our focus next time. Okay. This, as I said, this will be a more fundamentals of JavaScript with focus on React. Any questions? And again, I've recorded this. I'll put this on the, I'll put it in the canvas. So the recording, so you can go and look at it, refer to it.
What would you say are the overlaps or differences between just like basic JavaScript and React and some of the other frameworks.
Okay, so JavaScript is the underlying programming language, right? So I would say JavaScript is the language, right? Uh, so the way it works is frameworks are not languages. So like there's a React, there is Angular. So React is created by Facebook. Angular created by Google. There's Ember, which was created by, I think, Microsoft. But React is probably the most famous and easiest one to learn. And that's why we are learning React. So what React did is that it's still JavaScript. If you'll understand JavaScript uh, fundamentals, you can write React because it is still uh, JavaScript. But what it did is it created these blocks of logic that you can use that will allow you to build with much simplicity. So think of JavaScript as a silly putty, right? If I want to build a castle using sand, it's much harder, right? Because I have to build everything. Think of React as Lego. So they build the blocks. So I can build anything. I just need to have a right, size and all that stuff, right? It's still building the same thing, but now I've provided these blocks that helps me build, structure, um, more uniformly. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a useful way of looking at it. Legos.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but cool thing about JavaScript is that it can be used on a web, like what we did. It can be used on a mobile application. I can build like an iOS application or Android application using JavaScript. Okay. I can actually build application on my desktop, like some of the application you see on your desktop can be made using JavaScript as well. Uh, there's a framework called Node.js, which lets you do that. You can also build a server side, right? Like the stuff that goes on a server, right? That can be done using JavaScript as well. So JavaScript is a very versatile language. There's so many things you can do with JavaScript. So if you learn one language, you have all this power, right? So I would say focus on one language, which is JavaScript, and then decide what you want to do ultimately, right? Because you have all these options. React is a great option, as I said, and there are tons of jobs in React. If you ever look at what is a job site? React jobs. Let's say if I go to Indeed.com, I think sometimes they ask me to. And if I just say React developer, right? Right now, the situation is a little bit dire, to be honest. But usually even entry level, you can make up to like 100,000 easily. Look at this one. Well, this is C++. This is React. So $55 an hour is like 100,000, over 100,000. 50 is like 100,000. $100 is 200,000, right? So this is a C++, so a different job. So this is about 100,000. But then you have tons of jobs as a React developer. Even a junior developer, look at that, 80 to 85,000 easily. This one, look at it, 90 to 200,000. So and it's very easy to master this thing, right? I can, after this course, if you just practice and build your own app and just apply for jobs, you can easily get $100,000 job. And then in a couple of years, you can raise to maybe get a raise to up to, 150. This one is front-end developer, also React developer, $80 an hour. So this $80 is almost 150, 160,000 a year. So yeah, you can, as I said, there are tons of, once you learn this, you have lots of different opportunities. So I would say, and this is my mantra in life, learn one thing, but master it, right? If you do that, you can, you know, you can solve a lot of problems in that language, and that gives you that certain power, right? So about 10 15 years ago, I was struggling with my job and everything, and I came across JavaScript. I think I came across because it was forced upon me. My team was moving to JavaScript on one of the projects, and I said, I'm gonna learn JavaScript. I'm just gonna master it. And I went deep inside learning JavaScript, and the result was I was able to get jobs very quickly and rose in the corporate ladder, right, really quickly as well. And so I would say, if you learn this, you can, it's a shortcut to uh, to um, to success, right? A lot of people go to, this, I don't know, universities to learn programming and all that stuff, right? But you can do the same thing by just learning a language and practicing. Once you get into the door in a company, that's it. Then doesn't matter where you learn this stuff, right? It doesn't matter what degree you have, or it just it's all about your experience after that. So, yep. Um, any more questions? All right. Um, cool. As I said, I'll post a video, and then next time we'll do something more complex.
Thank you. This has been um,
Okay. I think whoever's speaking got cut off. But anyway, I kind of get the gist of it. Yeah. All right. All right. If no more questions, I'll see you guys next week.